Hello and good afternoon to everyone. And welcome to another webinar series, our Catalyst Conversations. Today, I'm also welcoming you again from the University of Salford, our School of Science, Engineering and Environment, and located in northwest of England. If you haven't visited us, it's a great place to be, and we are inviting everyone to check our school and the offer, what we are doing here. So as part of the Missing Elements funded project by a Royal Society of Chemistry, I'm here to introduce our project, Catalysing Change for Chemical Sciences, which is evidence-based project funded by RSC to tackle inequality and systemic racism in the UK. So this project is very valuable on a national stage and address many important things, such as the underrepresentation of Black chemists after graduation into senior academic positions, leadership, and decision-making levels. So Missing Elements report by RSC shows that systemic racism remains embedded at every career stage in the UK academia, and we are here to address it with our projects, and other people also funded to tackle these issues in a different way. So it is not that there is a lack of talent. It is not that there is something wrong with representation, but the problem is that we are not giving equal opportunities, and there are structural inequalities that need to be tackled. So how we're doing this, Catalyzing Changes in Chemical Sciences, is a EDI research project, a consortium project between the University of Salford, University of Kent, and University of York, and our partners work together with the students in addressing these issues. So we are actually tackling the important points by not just documenting the problem, but doing something about it, and trying to disrupt the structural inequality in the UK. So our project offers different activities where our student partners are involved, and leading the main project activities around these barriers. So we also have project students who are funded on bursaries to undertake research projects. They're mentored and guided, and we also have community and building networking events. Our partners in York will soon be delivering sessions in the Colonizing the Curriculum event, so I invite you to attend some of these sessions as well. And you're today here with me and my guest, who I will introduce shortly, in one of the third webinar series, Catalyst Conversation. So you've seen us in the previous weeks with three phenomenal speakers, and today we also have our third speaker, Dr. Sarwat Howe, with us, who will introduce a very important topic of intellectual property and research impact. So we'll be here until 2 o'clock. You are also invited to attend all our other sessions planned up. If you want to sign up for any of these, you can use this link on the side, and one of our team will be sending you a joint link for the upcoming sessions. Or if you want to catch up with the recording, you will surely also be able to do that. So today with us, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sarwat Howe, who is our intellectual property and commercialization manager at the University of Salford. We're tackling the question many researchers are asking themselves quietly: what happens after the discovery? So Sarwat will talk about these issues around real-world commercialization and know-how. So how to access this more widely into this IP and commercialization journey, and how we can make this more equitable for everyone. We're delighted to welcome Sarwat today with us, and you are welcome to leave any thoughts and challenges or comments for Sarwat or us in the Padlet. We'll share the link after as well. Okay.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Jelka, and thank you so much for having me here today. It's such a delight and a privilege to be part of such an important project, so thank you all so much. Thank you all as well for joining wherever you are, whether you're joining individually, as a group, or as part of a watch party, whether you're watching live or watching the recording. I'm so glad you're here, so thank you for joining, and I really hope you enjoy my talk. So let's get to it. You make a discovery, you're in the lab, your experiments are going really, really well. You're at your desk, you're writing code, you're running simulations, you've got some really promising results, and you think, there might be something here. I think I've done something really, really amazing. This could make a big difference. You make a discovery. What happens next? My name is Sarwat Howe, and I'm here to talk about just that with you today. When you make a discovery in the lab, when your simulations go well, when you've got some great experimental results, how do you turn that discovery into a product or service that could be used outside of academia to make a change and generate real-world impact? How do you go about that journey? I work within the IP and commercialization team at the University of Salford. We have counterparts at all different universities within the United Kingdom. You might find that team is called the Technology Transfer Office, or the TTO, or the IP and commercialization team. And in this talk, I will use those terms interchangeably. So you'll hear me saying TTO and IP&C. And in the context of this presentation, they essentially mean the same thing. So the team is small at the University of Salford. It's myself and my boss, Paul Sillar. And what technology transfer offices do is we work across the university, regardless of which department, school, or faculty. We work across the university to help you develop university research into products and services that can have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact outside of society, so your work can make a tangible change. the arrow on the right-hand side of the slide shows a short summary of the commercialization journey. And of course, you can talk to us at any point during the commercialization journey, but I appreciate you're all very busy and you don't have that much time. So the most efficient way of approaching us is once you've done some research and once you've got some promising data that really validates your discovery and shows that your discovery is doing what it says that it's doing. Once you speak to us from there, we'll be able to work with you to develop your discovery into an attractive commercial proposition that we're able to take out of the university and into the marketplace so it can be used to make a difference. We really champion inclusive commercialization at tech transfer offices across the UK, and I really, really mean that, everybody. We encourage researchers from all backgrounds to see themselves as future entrepreneurs. I fully appreciate, I totally get it. It can be really, really challenging to put yourself in that sort of environment where you might be the only person who looks like you in the room, or you might not be able to relate to others within the room and they might not be able to relate to you. And I understand what an undertaking that is. There are some wonderful webinars in this series which will equip you with tools and techniques to be able to navigate those situations and to be able to go forth and explore commercialization and be that person in the room. I won't go into that today. That's not really the purpose of this talk, but I would highly recommend you have a look at other webinars within this series and have a look at the ones that have already been streamed as well, because there is some fantastic advice within those webinars. I think it's very important to be the change that you would that you want to see. And indeed, I've been in situations where I've seen kind of senior members of staff who look like me, and I think, wow, that is an inspiration. And I've also been approached by other members of the university saying, Sarwat, it's really great to see a person of colour doing a talk. So it's really, really important, I think, to be the change that you want to see. So I would really, really recommend, if there's one thing that you take home from this talk, if there's one message that I want you to really, really retain, is if you want to explore IP and commercialization, come and talk to us. Come and talk to your TTO. We are always very, very happy and very, very open to helping you and guiding you along the commercialization journey, regardless of your background. Before I get into the main content of kind of IP, commercialization, the journey, the support, I'll tell you a bit about me first. So how did I get here? And honestly, everyone, the short answer is by accident. I never set out to, when I grow up, I want to be an IP commercialization manager. It just happened throughout the course of my career, and my journey just kind of ended up over here, really. So I too am a proud holder of a chemistry degree. So I did chemistry at Bristol, and then I did a PhD in engineering at the University of Cambridge. I've done lots of little things. So I used to work in industry as an engineer. I had a short stint in consultancy right after my PhD. And I've done this sort of tech transfer, knowledge exchange role across some different universities, also in the NHS and within the civil service as well. I'm actually currently undergoing career coaching, and the objective of that is to work with my coach and help me identify what's next for me. And I think that's a very normal transition throughout your career. I'll be honest, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So hopefully working with my coach will help me to crystallize that. So I've said, okay, we work with you to get your discoveries into products and services that can be taken out of the university, but what does that look like for someone like me? So here is my day in the life of an IP and commercialization manager. I know it sounds very cliched, but honestly, no 2 days are genuinely the same, and my boss Paul will back me up when I say this as well. This job is so varied and so much fun, and every day is genuinely different. But if I had to distill it down into a series of tasks, here's how I would do it. So a big part of my role, and honestly, like my favorite part of my role is doing stuff like this, is actually going out there and doing talks and talking to the community and upskilling people in IP and commercialization. A big part of my role is also spent at my desk, sort of doing very detail focused, looking at legal contracts, doing due diligence, looking at commercial and technical assessments. I do a lot of the kind of the day-to-day running of the technology transfer office, just making sure things run smoothly. So if those bits are ticking along in the background, it gives Paul myself more time to do the actual tech transfer commercialization work. A big part of the role is also looking at diplomacy and relationship management. So we work across the university and outside the university with several different stakeholders. And to be honest, everyone's lovely. And that's a nice part of this job as well. So a big part of my role, again, is just managing those relationships and making sure they remain good working relationships. Certainly at Salford, Paul and I have become a sort of a one-stop shop for intellectual property queries. So if people want to come and talk to us and have questions about IP, they're coming up on our door, and we assist with that. And then there's also the strategy and negotiation side of things as well. So we do lots and lots of different things, as you can see, which is why this job is just so interesting and multifaceted. And honestly, no 2 days are genuinely the same. Right, that's enough about me. Let's get into the actual content of the talk. So I'm going to talk to you about intellectual property strategy, commercial potential decoded, and the commercialization journey and how we can help you. So IP strategy. So whether you're watching this individually or in a group, I would just like you to think about, do I know what IP is? Have I heard the term before? Does it sound like a big scary word, which sounds like very legal terminology, and I'm not sure what to do with it? Where are you at with IP? So the way I like to explain it is IP, or intellectual property, is a creation of the mind. So the human mind is brilliant, and it can create many different things. A book, a new experimental protocol, a new molecule design, piece of music, piece of software. The human mind can create lots of different intellectual property. Now, an intellectual property right is the legal protection for that creation. Okay, makes sense? So the intellectual property is the creation of the mind. The intellectual property right is the legal protection for that creation. So as mentioned before, the human brain is fantastic and is capable of creating so many different things, capable of creating so many different forms of intellectual property. And so much so that there is no one size fits all IP right for all the different kinds of IP. So when you create a certain kind of IP, there is an associated IP right with that creation. So how you protect your IP depends on what you create, basically. You may have seen some of these terms before. Just take a moment just to look through all these different types of IP rights. Some you may have heard of, some you may not have heard of. I'll go through them in this slide. So patents protect how things work. So it might be a new synthesis process. It might be a new part of machinery. It might be a new molecule for a different indication. So patents protect how things work. Trademarks protect brands and logos. And this is also very important as well, because if you see something like, I don't know, the Apple brand or the Samsung brand, that then evokes the brand reputation and what it's like and the kind of things that they do. So companies are often very protective over their brand identity, and filing a trademark is one way to secure that. Design rights are distinct from patents, okay? So design rights protect how things look, whereas patents protect how things work. So design rights, you'll find, are used very commonly in, for example, the fashion industry, where you want to protect the look of something. Know-how is very important. So know-how is practical knowledge that's within your mind. So some of you may be in the lab working on the machine, and yes, you've got the lab manual written down of how to use the machine, but only you know there are certain key settings that you need to change or fiddle around with to get it to do what you want to do. That's know-how, and that's really, really important. While knowledge stays in your head, it remains know-how. Once it comes out of your head into another medium, so once it's written down, once it's painted, once it's performed, that's when it becomes copyright, because copyright protects the expression of ideas. So things like paintings, a piece of music, a piece of software. And I suppose the last piece of IP right, which is really, really relevant for all of you, is database rights. So interestingly, data is not protected by copyright. And the reason for that is data is not something that you create. Well, it shouldn't be something that you create. Data is something that you measure and you record. So it cannot be protected by copyright itself. But a lot of you will generate data and you will arrange that data in a specific order in a database that's designed for it to be analyzed and interrogated. And the arrangement of data in that order in a database that can be interrogated, that arrangement is protected by database rights. So patents, trademarks, and design rights are all what's called registrable intellectual property. So that means that you have to file it at the UK Intellectual Property Office, and then there's often a cost associated with that as well. Know-how, copyright, and database rights are what's called unregistrable rights. So it means that you don't have to register them, and they just come into being as they're created, so they're totally free. So if someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, I'll register your copyright for you," don't listen to them and don't give them your money. Absolutely not. Copyright, know-how, and database rights, they all come into being as the IP is created. Okay. So you might be saying to me, "Well, Sarwat, I'm a researcher. I do my work for public good. I want to make discoveries and give them away so anyone who needs them can access them and use them to benefit." And it makes sense, right? Working in a university, we are all about the pursuit of new knowledge and new innovations to benefit society. So why are IP rights relevant to me? And that's a really, really fair question. It absolutely is. So how I like to explain it is we acknowledge and we understand, right, that creating new ideas, it takes time, it takes money, it takes expertise. You've all been studying for a really long time, right? You didn't get this knowledge overnight, did you? It takes effort. It takes risk, especially with, high risk research. You don't know whether the experiments are going to work or not. So it takes risk. And when you develop something really, really good, it can be an extremely valuable asset. It can be really, really useful. So the way to think about intellectual property rights is that they are a bargain between the inventor and the state. So in exchange for example, filing your IP at the UK IPO, or in exchange for telling people about your idea, the state offers protection for your idea for a certain amount of time. And the reasoning behind that is you don't want to spend all this time developing this wonderful idea for some unscrupulous person to run off with it and say, "I made this, I discovered this is all mine, and I'm going to make some money off it." That's completely unacceptable. So IP rights just gives you the right to say, actually, no, you did not create this. I created this. This is mine, because you have that proof. You have that IP right. So the protection acts as an incentive for inventors and innovators to take the risk, to put their time and effort and money into creating new innovations with the knowledge that they can protect them. And it enables to gain that recognition and that financial benefit from their invention as well. Society then benefits from the innovations because they're out there being used and making a difference. And I think what's also really important is that the next generation of inventors and innovators can look at these developments in technology and think, well, you know what, that's a great way of doing that and solving that problem, but actually my research addresses it in this way, and I think I've got a discovery that can really benefit that as well, and actually improve upon what the current state of the art is. So the IP system aims to foster an environment where creativity and innovation can flourish, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's one of the reasons why we say it's really, really important to talk to your TTO and keep them involved in what you're doing. For some forms of IP protection, if you disclose it publicly before you put the protection into place, that can invalidate your protection. So we would never, ever, ever say, "Oh, don't ever publish, don't ever go to conferences, don't ever speak." Our mission's aligned to that of the university. You know, we absolutely want to encourage academic freedom and for you to disseminate your work, absolutely 100%. But if you talk to us early, it means that we can do an assessment, put any IP protection in place first, so it's done, it's sorted, and then you can go out there and disseminate your work. So what does this actually mean for a researcher in their day-to-day life? So here's some practical advice. So one thing I cannot stress this enough is keep a lab book that's really, really well annotated, okay? The amount of times that I've had an IP dispute and I've had to go back and check lab books to resolve that dispute is more than I care to say. So however you record your experimental results, whether that's in a physical lab book on pen and paper, whether you use bits of software, whatever you use, just make sure it's really comprehensive, it's up to date, it includes dates, it includes details of your experiments and what you did differently and what you kept the same, all that stuff. Just make sure it's really, really well annotated and documented. And the same thing applies for software-based projects as well. So if you're writing code or if you're doing simulations, again, it's really, really important to keep that code annotated so you kind of understand the reasoning of what you did at that point and why. If you're uploading to a repository, make sure you add documentation to that repository as well, just again, so you've got a record of what you did at that time and why. I won't go into it too much today because I've not really got the time, but if you are using open source software licenses, again, it's good to just double check what that license is, because that can affect the distribution of your own work, because it would count as a derivative work. So just make sure that if you are using open source software, you understand the implications of that. When you're disseminating your work, when you're talking to collaborators, I would also advise that you just carefully think about what you are saying and to who. And if you're ever in doubt, talk to your supervisor or talk to your PI, or you can talk to your IP and commercialization team, and we'll be able to guide you as well. Clarifying the ownership and use of IP is exceedingly complex. Just because you made it doesn't mean you own it. It's often much more nuanced than that. So if you ever have any queries on IP ownership or what your rights are, where you stand, again, just talk to your IP and commercialization team, your tech transfer office at your university, and they'll be able to guide you through this. And if you want kind of further information to read in your own time, your university would have an IP policy. It will be publicly available. You'll be able to search for it. Okay, so we've spoken about IP and we've spoken about IP rights. Let's talk about IP strategy. So an IP strategy is a plan for managing, protecting, and getting value from your original ideas. IP can be expensive to maintain, especially in the case of patents. You're talking tens of thousands of pounds over many, many years. So if you're paying that much for a patent, you want to make sure that you're basically getting value for money as well. It's important to look at how different forms of IP can protect your product as a whole, because let's say one form of IP gets knocked out. Let's say you file a patent and it doesn't get granted. What can you fall back on? What's your backup plan? So a nice example of this is on the right-hand side of the slide. So if you look at the Coca-Cola bottle, and I know it sounds daft, but what IP is in a bottle of Coca-Cola? And it turns out there is quite a lot. So design rights, remember that protects how things look. So design rights for the overall shape of that glass bottle. Know-how is practical knowledge, and in this case, it is that top secret recipe that only a few people know. Copyright protects the expression of ideas. So in this case, it would be the bottle label. Patents protect how things work. So here it would be tamper-resistant bottle cap technology. So people can't just, refill empty bottles of Coke, recap them, and then sell them on, because that would be disastrous for Coke's brand. And trademarks protect the brand. So in this case, it would be the actual name, Coca-Cola, and that red color scheme as well. So you can see, even something like a bottle of Coca-Cola, there are so many different types of IP which are used to protect that product as a whole. Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about commercial potential decoded. Okay, so let's go back to our first slide. You make a discovery. Fantastic. What a great piece of science. But how do I know if it's actually solving a problem? So in my day-to-day as an IP and commercialization manager, when someone comes to me with a new invention and a new idea, I do something called a commercial potential assessment, where basically I just ask a ton of questions just to understand a bit more about the technology and whether it has any sort of commercial potential, and if not, what can we do to get it there. So I tend to think about it in 4 different buckets. So thinking about technical side of things, so the science and the technology and how it works, looking at the commercial side of things, so more of the business side of things, looking at the financial side of things, so looking at the money and who's going to pay for it and how's it going to be paid for, and perhaps most importantly, the people, because you can have the best technology in the world, right? But people make things happen. People get things commercialized, and without the right team, you're not going to get your technology out the door and into the marketplace. So when I say technical, I mean things like, what is your invention? How do you describe it? What problem are you trying to solve? Why isn't the current state of the art working? How does your invention solve that problem? How far along is it? How developed is it? What do you need to do to get it more and more developed, ready for the market? What data do you need to validate your invention? And are there any regulatory concerns? With commercial, it'll be things like, this is address any customer pain points, any issues that the customer is having. Have you spoken to experts in the field to see whether actually the assumptions you're making are correct, and are these actual problems this is actually need solving? We've spoken about the IP and the IP strategy. Who are the key players? Who are your competitors and who are your collaborators? And how does your technology fit into this landscape? What portion of the market can you capture? And what's the business plan? How are you going to actually get this to market? Financials will be looking at how has it been funded, and how do you plan on funding this? Have you thought about your cash flow forecast? Have you thought about the income and how that's going to come in? You may have a figure in your mind of, right, I need this much money to get this market ready, but in the event you're not able to secure all that funding, if you get 10% of that funding, where does that end up, and where does that take you? So understanding what's needed for the next tranche of development. And with the people, it's identifying who are the inventors and who are the contributors, who's on the team, and who will do what. And you're not going to have all the skills you need in the first instance. So it's really important to understand where your skill gaps are, and how you're going to fill them, and how you're going to fill them. So that seems like a lot of questions, and it is, but my boss, Paul, is excellent at distilling that into 3 main questions that you need to get really clear in your head. And we don't expect you to have the answers to these 3 straight away. And we don't expect the answers to remain the same across the commercialization journey, because, of course, as you go through this journey, you'll learn more, you'll refine your hypothesis, you'll understand the market more, and you'll be able to refine your answers to these 3 questions. So the 3 key ones you need to get clear in your mind: what is it? Who wants it? And who can I talk to learn more? And that's what you need. Some of you may have seen the Strategizer toolkit. So that's just on the Strategizer website. And they're really, really useful visualizations of looking at the commercial potential of your idea. So if you've not seen them yet, I recommend going to the website and having a look, because they'll enable you to kind of ask these questions, find answers to these questions, and lay these answers out in such a way that it's more straightforward to come to a conclusion, and help to really assess that commercial potential in like a rigorous and tested way. If you decide to go down the route where, in terms of funding, you want to go to investors and pitch for investment, here's some little tips and tricks for framing your ideas for investors. So it's very easy and very, very natural. Like, it makes total sense to really get very technical with the investors, but you've got to bear in mind that they might not be technical themselves. It is very, very likely that they will only really understand the basics of the science underpinning your technology. So make it accessible in a way that they understand. Talk about the problem rather than what a great piece of science your technology is. Make the ask and the outcomes very, very clear. So, for example, you may have watched things like Dragon's Den, where like the person pitching will say, I'm offering £25,000 for 10% stake in my company. This will enable us to increase sales, which will result in company growth and increased valuation. So that ask is very, very clear. I'm asking for this much money for that much of my company to do this, which will result in that. So you need to make the ask very, very clear and just show the investors what they're getting for their investment. Investors like information, but not too much. So be selective with what you put down, make it very, very clear. Have evidence of market need, market traction, and make sure that the evidence and information that you do have is robust and reliable and backs up the claims that you're trying to make. How will you deliver on the outcomes? And invariably, when things go wrong, have you thought about the risks and how will you mitigate those risks? One thing to note as well, and is investors putting their money into university research tend to be a certain type of investor. So we would say they're investors who market themselves as more than money. So they'll be more hands-on, they'll want to get involved with the running of the business. So because of this, we have found in our experience that the investors will be looking to invest in the project and also the person as well. So it's really, really important to make sure that you kind of make yourself investable, make yourself credible, because in this context, the person is as important as the project, okay? And if this sounds like an absolute minefield to navigate, please don't worry, because your TTO will be experienced in all this and they will guide through this investment journey. Okay, and that leads me very, very nicely onto the last part of my talk, which is the commercialization journey and how the support available from a TTO can help you to get your discovery to market. Okay, so if you look through the arrows in blue, the arrows in blue signify a very simplified version, I appreciate a very simplified version of the research journey. And the arrows in purple signify a simplified version of the commercial journey. And what I'm trying to say in this slide is that commercialization and research don't need to be two separate activities. Commercialization doesn't need to be an additional burden. In fact, your TTO will work with you to make sure that commercialization and research complement each other and really, really boost each other. So, for example, you get some great results. You talk to your IP manager. They then work with you to do the commercial assessment, identify how we're going to make your discovery into an investable proposition, put the IP protection in place. You then also go about your usual duties as a researcher, publishing papers, going to conferences, disseminating your work, and getting feedback on your work. And that feedback all feeds into the market assessment, the business case, the tech development plan, all things like that. So both plans really, really do complement each other. Sometimes those conversations, both in the research space and the commercial space, can dig out new research questions that could be answered. So you might talk to somebody in industry and say, you know, my research can do this. And they might say, well, if it could do that, that would be brilliant. And you think, well, actually, that would be quite a straightforward experiment for me to do in the lab. I've got the funding, I've got the consumables. Let's go and do it. And you might not have thought about that angle before. So you can see how having the two conversations side by side and having the activities running in parallel can really help to boost and inform each other. If you do manage to get your discovery out of the university and out to market and you form the spin-out company or you sign that licensing deal, which I'll talk about a bit later, that's an incredible achievement. That's absolutely mega. And you should be really, really proud of yourself, because that will really raise a profile as a researcher, because you have shown the funding bodies that give you some research funding and look what I can do with it. So that will raise your profile. You'll be able to apply for more grant funding, and then it just ends up being a virtuous circle. More grant funding comes in, you do more research, you might get another idea that's commercializable, and so it continues. So your teacher will work with you to make sure your commercial activities and your research activities really, really harmonize each other. You're probably saying to me, Sarwat, I'm so busy. How on earth am I going to find time to do commercialization on top of everything else that I need to do? And I completely get that. Commercialization is a really, really good thing to explore. Absolutely. you can solve real world problems, which can make a difference. You disseminate your work through different means. You learn new skills. It might help to inform which way research is going, and it may help you leverage further research funding. And your TTO support is really, really far ranging. So here's a selection that I've put down, but we could help with different funds to apply for. We sort out the deal negotiation. We help you with the market assessment. If we can't help, we're able to signpost you to others who can. We're often very well connected. We help you with the strategy side of things and navigating the internal university processes in order to enable your discovery to be brought outside the university. We take care of the IP filing and management. We can assist with getting you on entrepreneurship training. But I think possibly our most important role and bit of support that we can offer is being that friendly face. Sometimes commercialization can be a bit of a thankless job, you know. It might feel like you're going 3 steps forward and taking 2 steps back. And actually, I think just having someone who's been there, worked with other researchers, has done it before, and who can say, you're doing really, really well, well done, keep at it, you're doing brilliantly, your science is so good, we're getting there, you know, they might have said no, but let's go and try this next. I think having that supportive and friendly face, I think, is a really, really key part of what we do and what we can offer. So you may have heard me talk about spin-outs and licenses and using the terms throughout the presentation. So just to make sure that everyone kind of knows what I'm talking about. So licenses. Do any of you have a driving license? Do any of you have a learner's driver's license? Do any of you have no driving license at all? So the ones with no driving license, can you drive a car? And it's not a trick question. The ones who have a learner's license, can you drive by yourself? Nope, you've got to drive with someone with you. Those of you with a full driving license, can you drive by yourself? Yep, of course you can. Is your driving license for every country in the world? Nope, it'll be for the country where it's been issued. Can your license enable you to drive all vehicles? Again, likely not. Likely it's only for cars and vans, for example. Is your license forever, or does it need renewing? So certainly mine is renewing it every 10 years. So a license to drive is similar to a license for IP. It gives you the right to do something, but with some terms attached. So a license for IP is giving somebody else the rights to your IP, the rights to your discovery, to develop it for commercial use, and in return, the university receives some payment, which is then distributed to the inventors and the school and the university via their IP policy. So licensing of IP is typically done with an industrial partner with the means to take this to market. So typically it's for kind of step change improvements rather than very, very disruptive innovations. If you have an innovation that's really, really risky, so for example, things like quantum computing, very risky, we don't know whether it's going to work or not, they tend to be commercialized via a spin-out company. And what that is, it's an entirely new company set up to commercialize university research. The spin-out is granted a license in the same way an industrial partner is to develop the IP, but no royalties are paid. Well, certainly not at Salford anyway. And the university will own a portion of the company as well, and that's in line with government recommendations, so it's fair. And the university will realise the value of its share once the company is sold, because once the company is sold and they're bought by a bigger player, that player will then give the university cash in return for the shares. So you can argue that the spin out might not be sold for another 20 years. So you're almost playing the long game with a spin out company, but might be really, really high value. Whereas the license, you might be getting royalties in after 2-3 years. So there's not one better than the other. It just depends what's best for the innovation. And the key part of this is making sure you pick the mechanism, you pick the route to commercialization that gives the innovation the best chance of success. So in line with a spin-out company, you also may wish to look at a social enterprise. So that's a company, again, set up to commercialize university research, but rather than the profits go to shareholders, because there are no shareholders in a social enterprise, the profits are reinvested back into the social enterprise to do more good, or they're reinvested back into the community to make more of a difference. Similarly with licensing, it might not make sense to license your IP just to one person, especially if you've got, for example, like a piece of software that's ready to go. You might want to license it to anyone who might want to use it. In which case, your university may have something called a knowledge bank or a research tools platform, but they're called different things at different places. But basically means that your technology is on there, and you can basically click through, like, accept the terms and conditions, like that self-license. So you click through, there's no negotiation, accept the terms and conditions, and then it's downloadable. So lots of different things that we can do, lots of different mechanisms and routes to commercialization that we can do to get your idea to market. So it all depends on what gives your innovation the best chance of success. I'll just walk through a quick case study as well. So Salsa Sound is one of the university's spin-outs, and we're really, really proud of Salsa. They're founded in 2017 to commercialize a suite of AI tools for virtual crowd noise and audio source detection, developed by Acoustics, and the IP strategy consists of patents and copyright. You can see that their journey's been a long one. They started in 2013, and the initial IP was developed by a PhD student, which is why it's really important to think about IP at all stages of your career. So the patent was filed in 2015. The company was founded in 2017. The license was transacted in the same year as well. And they've just gone from strength to strength to strength. Like, they've grown the team, they've got some really cool projects, and each time we meet with them, it's always really great to figure out what they're doing next. So yeah, we are very, very, very proud of Salsa Sound. In terms of reflections and lessons learned, as I mentioned, it's really key to think about your IP early on at every stage of your career. It's key to validate your assumptions as well and make sure you are solving a problem that actually exists. Acoustics at Salford is very well connected to industry, so the guys knew that they were solving a key problem that needed to be solved. You might have seen that in Salsa's timeline, there was no investment date, and that remains true. The company has taken no investment. They've instead done something called bootstrapping, which is basically where you keep the company running through its own funds. So bringing in money through projects, bringing in money through sales, bringing in money through consultancy, and having that fund the spin-out company. There are pros and cons for both, because of course, if you don't go for investment, you kind of retain that control within the company, but also you're constantly worried about cash flow. You can't just get a cash injection from an investor. You need to keep making those sales and getting those projects in. So it depends on the innovation. And then I suppose timing is key as well. A key part of Salsa's tech is being able to create the immersive stadium experience in your living room. So if you can't go and watch your favorite sports team, how do you feel like you're in a stadium at home? And of course, we all went through a global pandemic. Nobody was able to predict that was going to happen. So sometimes timing is key, but sometimes you just get a bit lucky with what's happening in the world. So who knows? It truly is a journey. So thank you very much for listening today. I really appreciate it. I'll just wrap up, then I can take any questions. But as a scientist who's carrying out research and making amazing discoveries, think about IP. Commercialization is not a blocker to academic work and is absolutely not compromised on academic freedom at all. And your TTO will understand this. We work with all kinds of IP, not just patents. So please come and bring your ideas to us. It's never too early. And there's no such thing as a silly question. So come and talk to us. And if we can't help, we will signpost you to somebody who can. And commercialization is risky, high risk, high reward, right? A lot of the ideas don't make it. I think it's important to note that don't be disappointed if it's not this one or not yet. Just keep persevering. And commercialization truly is a journey, and your TTO are here with you for your journey. So going back to the earlier part of my talk, there's one thing I want you to take home today and to remember is if you have any queries to do with IP, please come and talk to your TTO. We're always very happy to help you. Right, thank you everyone for listening. I'm so grateful, and I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Sarwat. This was amazing, very clear. I was really left impressed by your opening statement, be the change you want to be. So I captured that on our Padlet.
I love it.
Yes, I think, leading by example is the way forward, and what you're doing is just brilliant. So let's tackle some questions. I had one that I posted. So let's do that one. That's me. So what helped you realize IP and commercialization was the right career path for you?
Oh, that is a really good question. So I suppose for me is I've always loved science since I was a young age, and I always knew I wanted to study science. But I realized during my PhD that being in the lab and pursuing academia maybe wasn't quite for me, but I wasn't ready to leave science just yet. And I love the university environment. Cambridge has a long history of commercialization, so we had a lot of contact with sort of my counterparts at Cambridge. So when a job came up and I read the description, it just felt kind of perfect because it felt like I could do science but not be in the lab, and I could talk about science with people who were making really cool discoveries, and they would come and approach us at a time when experiments were going really well and things were really exciting. But it also helped to kind of use the science and use my technical background for the commercial side of things as well. So I suppose it was just as I went through my own career journey, understanding what I liked and what my personality was like and what I wanted to do within the scientific field.
Thank you, Sarah. So next question is Professor Andy Meyer. Is there any useful commercialization tracker document that's a useful way for monitoring the key steps to take and to keep track?
Andy, that is a really helpful question, and thank you so much for raising it. So your institution should have something called an invention disclosure form. So please do go and ask them for it. And this invention disclosure form has basically all the fields that you need to fill in to capture what your invention was at that point in time. So that's really useful for like a one-shot capture. Once you have that sort of invention form template, that then is very useful to be able to be used as a tracker form as well. So you can see, well, actually on this date, I did these experiments, so that's now changed. Or in this date, I began collaborating with these new inventors, so that's now changed as well. So I would really advise doing that. You of course don't have to use your institution's disclosure form. You could just make your own, as long as you're recording who did what they did, and when they did it. As long as you're recording those three things, that is the most use. Keep that records.
Lovely. And another one from Andy. So is there any lecture watching? What's a good way to thinking about embedding these ideas you discussed into courses?
Oh, Andy, another great question. I'm really glad that you've asked that. So I remember this so clearly from my PhD at Cambridge. So we do courses in the first year of our PhD as well as doing the research. And the lecturers over there were absolutely brilliant at incorporating their commercialization work into their lectures. So for example, they would, if I use display technology as an example, we'd have a lecture on liquid crystal displays and how they work. And at the end, they'd have a case study of like, and here's a spin-up company that I'm creating. And you just think, wow, this is brilliant. This is a really great way of like how the science could be applied and how it could be taken out of the university. But also it's not done by some, it's not some person I can't see and I can't imagine. It's by my lecturer who's in the room, and that person has been a massive inspiration to me. So I would suggest if there's any bits of theory that you're delivering or any work examples that you're delivering, which is directly related to something that you yourself are commercializing, please absolutely do include that. If you're looking for kind of a generic example or something that you yourself aren't quite doing but you'd like to include, I recommend talking to Paul and myself if you're at Salford, or talking to your technology transfer office, and they should be able to provide you with some sort of case study that you can use within your lecture notes as well. But I think just having that story to bring the theory to life is just brilliant. It's just wonderful.
Thank you, Sarwat. There's one more from me earlier, which curiosity question. So, what are the most common misconceptions researchers have about commercialization, and what usually stops genuinely good ideas from reaching the market?
Oh, again, really good question, Jelka. Thank you so much for asking. So I would say, I'm just wondering which order to say them in. Okay, so, so the thing I see the most actually, and it is sometimes kind of sad and upsetting actually, is imposter syndrome. So it's people thinking that they can't do commercialization, they've just put themselves into a box as a researcher, and I'm not commercially savvy, I could never do it, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to do it. And I think having that barrier to commercialization is probably one of the biggest things which stops really good ideas from reaching the market, is the researcher thinking that they can't do it. And I just want to reiterate that's absolutely not the case. If you're good enough to be a researcher, you can absolutely engage in commercialization. So if you're watching and you're thinking, oh, I don't know whether I've got it in me to do this, talk to your TTO and they will help you and they will guide you. I suppose the other thing that I see as well is worried about losing your academic freedom. If I file a patent, what does this mean for my work? Does it mean that nobody can ever use it? Does this mean that I can't talk about it? Does this mean that I can't go to conferences? And I think dispelling the myth that commercialization and research are two separate things is really, really important. I think understanding that commercialization and research can really complement each other, and you do not have to abandon your values as an academic to do commercialization. Absolutely not. I think that's really, really important to get that message to hit home as well.
I think, Sarwat, this was a brilliant link, actually, to our previous session. So if you are watching this as a recording, you can go back to our imposter syndrome link of the session from the 15th of January. And I invite everyone to sign up for the future Catalyst Conversations. Next one is our Professor Andy Mia, who will be talking about the visibility and networking, and I think another great conversation to have. So just wanted to thank everybody for listening, and really thank Sarwat for this amazing session today. And I hope everybody learned a lot about IP and commercialization. And thank you, Sarwat, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Bye.
Bye.